Okay, let's get into chapter 34 called Paradise. Now, this is when we talk about how they found their home in Montecito. I knew it was palatial, but I had never gotten into the details. Why a man, a woman, and a child with no friends and no family to share their fortunes with would need a house of this size boggles my mind. I do not understand. And also with no revenue source readily available to them. You know what I mean? It's like, how did they think that they could maintain this existence, this luxury existence? And why would they need so much room when they have... I just don't understand why you'd want to knock around this giant house with you and your kid. At this point, there's not even any Lilibet, so it's just them and their infant son. Do they need a house of this size? Listen, in May 2020, Meghan could say she had achieved the American dream. She and Harry bought a 9-bedroom, 14-bathroom, 18,000 square foot hillside house in Montecito, Santa Barbara for $14.65 million. That's 11 million pounds for you Brits. Why do you need 14 bathrooms? Has everybody been stricken with diarrhea and throwing up? I mean, you've got to just be rushing from bathroom to bathroom. There's 3 of you and one of them is in diapers. Why do you need 14 bathrooms? You don't even have 14 friends. What in the world? With 8 acres of lawns and views over the Pacific for what local agents called a bargain price, the property included, y'all, sit down, a gym, a spa, a cinema, tennis courts, swimming pools, a children's cottage, 2-bedroom guest house, because there's not enough room in the 9-bedroom, 14-bathroom mansion. You've got to have a 2-bedroom guest house and a 5-car garage. This is like obscene. Finally, Meghan's hard work had been rewarded with a palace in part of California's paradise. Her hard work, the only reason she got all of this was because of the Queen's hard work. If Meghan had never married into that royal family, you think anybody would have trusted her on that Montecito mortgage? Please. Okay, so obviously she wanted to move to Montecito because let's hear who her neighbors were. There was Ellen DeGeneres. There was Oprah Winfrey. There was Gayle King. Ted Sarandos was right down the road. Ted Sarandos, in case you don't know, is in charge of Netflix $17 billion annual budget for content. So, gotta cozy up to him. His live-in girlfriend, Nicole Advent, is America's first Black ambassador to the Bahamas, a friend of Oprah Winfrey, and the daughter of Motown's former chairman, Clarence Avant, also known as the Black Godfather. So Meghan had really decided that she, these were her people. There wasn't anywhere else that she could live. This was the only suitable place. Dotted around her Hollywood celebrities included Gwyneth Paltrow and Katy Perry. Also, David Foster was right down the road. He is a Canadian music producer. And he was living in Montecito with his 5th wife, Catherine McPhee. And Foster apparently had become some kind of mentor to Harry. McPhee loved to say that David had a really, really beautiful relationship with Harry. And she even went so far as to say, they're so cute. They're like a father and a son. All right, but Catherine McPhee, let me just introduce you to somebody. He's called King Charles. He happens to be Harry's real dad. So I don't think he's needing a father figure. He's got a father. He chose to walk out of his father's life. Reports of their happiness in Montecito excited speculation in Britain about the future of their marriage. See, a lot of people had doubted that Harry and Meghan were ever going to make it. They called foul on that. Now, just recently today, I was listening to Angela Levin talk about Harry and how she thinks the marriage is over because Meghan isn't anywhere near Harry at any point. When he was doing his PR for his book Spare, where was Meghan? When he had to go to the coronation, where was Meghan? When he's had to do every court case lately, he didn't have to, he walked into it, but when he's gone to appear in court to fight and beg for money and, to scream about his rights, where's Meghan? She's the one who put all of this behavior and language in his mouth, but now she's not there to support him. And these are hard times for him But where is she? She's just over here, trying to make the next deal. And it used to be when she was with the royal family that she was always clinging to him and clawing to him, and he could never get a breath of fresh air because she was always right up there, right up under his arm, never letting him 2 inches away from her. But now, where is she? Where's the Markle claw now? She can't be bothered to help him in any of his difficulties, and she's the one who put him in half of them. Anyway, at this point, when they had gotten married and these preceding years right after, people wondered how much longer this could last. But for all the people saying, oh, Harry's going to wake up soon, it seemed like maybe he wasn't, because he apparently seemed to feel very liberated by this new California life. It was all that he had hoped. So those who predicted the same misery as Edward VIII, who was surprised after his abdication when Britons turned against him, made the wrong comparison. Harry was never heir to the throne. Although the Queen gave the couple a chance to reconsider their departure after a year's trial of independent life, Harry had no intention of returning. So everybody's hope that maybe he would see the light, that hope was beginning to dwindle, at least at this point. Meghan had power and influence. All those directors, producers, agents, and actors who had witnessed her earlier struggles feared speaking out about their experiences. Yeah, because you remember when Meghan first came on the scene and people were trying to figure out, wait, who is this girl? We've never seen her. She's an actress, but we don't know who she is. People started poking around and trying to talk, and all the Hollywood people wouldn't speak against her because they realized that she had found herself inexplicably in the arms of power, and they wanted a little of that. So to come out swinging against her was not going to suit them very well. So that was the initial feeling about speaking against Meghan. That feeling has only strengthened over time because now here she's come back, the wounded victim. They're definitely not going to say anything bad about her now because there's too much American media favor. She represents yet one more person of color who has been abused by white people. So they're not going to talk against her in any way. It'll be dangerous for them. Nobody was supportive of anybody criticizing somebody like Meghan, even for legitimate reasons. Legitimate reasons were swept under the carpet every time. I'm not feeling comfortable speaking of Meghan at this time, said David Bartis of Suits, which was a typical reply to journalist inquiries. Terrified of being blackballed or canceled, the only heroes in Los Angeles were invented by Hollywood for the screen. The Sussexes were protected as Hollywood stars. Embedded in Hollywood's culture, both transformed their image into warriors eager to brave the crossfire. So there was, for a brief blip in time, Meghan and Harry making the most of their victimhood, and they had found the perfect cultural moment to dish up their victimhood tale and collect all of the sympathy that they could. And they latched on to this whole idea that they could now preach to the masses. Now they could go out and tell everybody how that everybody ought to be. Because at the same time, Black Lives Matter had made another resurgence. Black Lives Matter was not a new movement in 2020, but it was its sort of second rebirth. It had died down and then it came roaring back twice as strong and with multiple heads. Harry saw that Meghan had been abused by white people because that's how white people are. They're just abusive monsters. They're never going to treat anybody with even a hint of melanin in their skin with any decency. And unfortunately, Harry saw that this was going to be his wife's plight, but because he was a hero, a knight, if you will, he was going to protect her. Tom Bauer writes, Harry had been persuaded by Meghan about the evils of white privilege and the justification of Black Lives Matter. So he comes out with a script in his mouth because to come up with his own words has never occurred to him. My wife said recently, Harry told the young people being honored with Diana Awards in July 2020, that our generation hasn't done enough to right the wrongs of the past. I am sorry. I'm sorry that we haven't got the world to the place that you deserve it to be. Institutional racism has a place in our societies. Yes, it is still endemic. Don't even think it's gone away. Unconscious bias must be acknowledged without blame to create a better world for all of you. So what's Harry talking about here? He saw a cultural cause to jump on and to sort of further their own story of victimhood. Now, to make sure their star continues to shine bright in this arena, he's got to come out and talk about white privilege. Yet it's his white privilege of the royal family that Meghan married into, wanting to get close to that power. So shouldn't she sort of be condemned? If white people are terrible and constantly manipulating the system and constantly trying to keep people down, then wasn't she sort of a traitor to marry into a white family so she could get some of that power? Now, I don't believe any of that, but all I'm saying is by her own politics, isn't she sort of destroying her own narrative? She married one of the very white people who is so terrible and in a position of power, and the whitest of all the white ones, the redheaded one. So it's almost like she doesn't mean anything she says. Harry was echoing a speech that Meghan had given 2 weeks earlier in a video about black people killed by the police. She'd made this video for the graduates of her old school, the Immaculate Heart. And in the video, she had said, "The first thing I want to say to you is that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you have to grow up in a world where this is still present." It's like, okay, but if you really believe that's so, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to make it better? What legislation are you going to champion? If you really want to get into politics, Meghan, this would have been a perfect opportunity to start talking about what you would do differently if you were in charge. Not necessarily running a campaign, but just getting it out there, what your ideas are, laying the groundwork. But Meghan is never, ever, ever, she can lay the groundwork when it comes to her own manipulation. But when it comes to actually doing work, the idea of sitting with something, studying how best to do it, figuring out a path and some sort of progress towards a goal, she doesn't know how to do any of that. She just wants it to come instantaneously, and then when it doesn't, she's out. But anyway, this would have been a perfect time for her to start her political aspirations, but no, she just wants to sit there and be like, "I'm so sorry, it's so terrible. This is such a terrible world you grow up in, but let's be changes for good." In what way, Meghan? In Montecito, Harry separated himself from his family and his roots. Transforming himself into a campaigner, he attacked the Commonwealth as colonial and racist with an unforgivable history. For just 4 months earlier, as vice president of the Commonwealth Trust, he'd spoken with unquestioning praise about his grandmother's achievements. See, here's the problem. Harry doesn't know enough to comment on anything. We know from Spare how much he hated the history of his own country and how much he despised having to hear about all his family. I mean, there was like lengthy passages in Spare about how much he despised his history teacher and how disgusting he thought the whole topic was. So he doesn't know enough about his own country to even criticize it. But then this is the other thing that's just so embarrassing for the both of them. The Commonwealth is a voluntary organization. People want to be in the Commonwealth. What they're thinking about is the British Empire. It's an enormous miscalculation for them to even be discussing the Commonwealth when what they mean is the British Empire. And they want to talk about colonialism and all this. But it's like, if people don't want to be in the Commonwealth, they don't have to be. No one is forcing them to stay, and no one's going to cause a war if they asked to be released from that organization. Harry and Meghan just don't know of what they speak. So they come out with over and over and over and over criticizing the Commonwealth. And then when it was finally pointed out to them that, there's kind of a difference between the Commonwealth and the British Empire. Do you mean the British Empire? Then they wanted to backtrack and be like, we do love the Commonwealth. We do think that's a good organization, but England just has to do better. England needs to educate itself. Okay, which, can't stand that kind of language. You need to educate yourself. Why don't you educate yourself, Meghan, and figure out that there is a difference between the Commonwealth and the British Empire? Some people blamed Nicola Brentnall, the Commonwealth Trust chief executive, for encouraging their criticism. By the way, she resigned shortly after all this, so nobody wanted her around anyway because she's the one who sort of stirred up this ugly talk. Meghan was out there talking about unconscious racial bias of the Commonwealth, saying that there's no way they can ever move forward because they haven't acknowledged the past and all this. It's like, what are you even talking about? Her concept of foreign policy and the way the world works is so blanketed by ignorance. The fact that she even had the audacity to come out and say a thing is shocking. She comes out, we're going to be a little uncomfortable right now because equality does not put everyone on the back foot. It puts us all on the same footing, which is a fundamental human right. What are you even talking about, Meghan? What are these phrases? I don't even understand what she's trying to say. All right. So anyway, once it had been pointed out to them that their criticism of the Commonwealth was a bit misguided, and when I say a bit, I mean exceptionally so, they came out and tried to backtrack and talk differently. And they came out and were gushing about how incredibly proud they were to have once worked with the Commonwealth. But again, Britain, you need to right the wrong that's been done. Well, I think they did when they developed the whole idea of the Commonwealth. I mean, it's a voluntary organization. There's 1/3 of the world's population have agreed to be part of this organization. And the whole point of it is to rectify inequalities. What is it that Meghan wants done? She just knows the word Commonwealth, so she's just going to banter it about and roll it around in her mouth and say a bunch of things she doesn't understand and just mix a bunch of BLM jargon with the Commonwealth and just act like it all makes sense. And none of it does. Ultimately, all their tub-thumping damage the couple's popularity. Harry's negative rating in Britain increased from 35% to 47%. Meghan's rose from 46% to 59%. Their positive ratings fell to the mid-30%. The Queen scored 83% positive and William 80% positive. Of course, in America at this point, Meghan and Harry still remained really popular. I think we just saw these two and they came over and we thought that it was some kind of compliment to us as a country that they would choose us. And we just see anything that sort of glitters and has any hint of fame as something that we really want over here in America. And I also sometimes think that we greatly misjudge people who have a sense of, like an outsized sense of determination. We think that's some kind of bravery, some kind of courage. And sometimes we're really misguided and we struggle to be able to articulate that that's not courage, that's just enormous stupidity. When people do something that's so audacious, and rather than take a second and be like, oh, let's pump the brakes, are they crazy or are they brave? As Americans, we love the crazy and we'll call it brave because it excites us when people do things that are outlandish. As somebody who's an enormous patriot, I don't say that in a bad way. I mean, I just think that sometimes we just get too excited when people do things that are like out of the box. And I think it's part of our culture. I mean, I feel like the American Revolution poised us to be a country that loves to do things that are outlandish and crazy. And many times they are brave and sometimes it's just crazy. But I sometimes don't think we have a great cultural meter for when it's crazy and when it's brave. Anyway, we definitely were misguided in our embrace of Harry and Meghan. But I feel like a lot of people came to the realizations, some sooner than others. But I would say that we are all solidly aware of what we're dealing with now. We just were a little slow in the uptake.